increase and its replacement with an inflation-related increase. Our message to NERSA was simple. Cape Townians cannot afford above-inflation increases in the cost of electricity. Such increases are unfair, unaffordable, and unjust. This remains our view. Prohibitively expensive electricity affects the poor more than anyone else. So we must take urgent action to reduce the regressive effects of unaffordable power. This is the second benefit of our IPP program. This project will allow the city to purchase power from IPPs at a rate far below Eskom's prevailing rate, and to, over time, pass this saving on to consumers. But, Minister, guests, Cape Town can only do so much. The national government needs to walk this road alongside us and take these bold steps with us. Minister, I am happy to once again share this platform with you today. We saw each other only a couple of weeks ago, and you were very supportive of the city's plans to procure additional electricity. I want to thank you today and reaffirm our commitment towards procuring additional electricity generation, which will ease the pressure on Eskom and the national grid, which will provide the most important economic stimulus this country can come up with, and which will, over time, provide cheaper electricity too. Thank you for your support in that endeavour. To the industry, I would welcome the opportunity to hear your critiques and ideas. If you think we are doing things wrong, tell us. If you have great ideas about how we can do things even better, speak up. Our goal is to make sure that every Cape Townian has reliable and affordable access to the energy they need to live, run businesses, study, travel, stay safe, and thrive. And we don't want this in 15 years. We want it in a reasonable amount of time. We cannot wait any longer. If you can help us achieve this goal of no load shedding in Cape Town, of reliable and affordable electricity for all, my team and I personally very much want to hear from you. Thank you for choosing Cape Town for the venue for this crucial discussion about energy security in South Africa and our continent. And I wish you every success for the remainder of the conference. Enjoy our beautiful city. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill-Lewis. I would like to now start by introducing our Minister of Minerals, Resources and Energy. Before I do that, Honourable Minister, I just wanted to maybe just give a few key pointers around this particular event.
Is it mine or yours?
That mask is mine.
Oh, okay.
Let's not share COVID. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for your speech. I think one of the things that I just briefly wanted to comment around that, and we are very grateful for the initiatives and path being taken by the City of Cape Town. The event that we are engaged in today, and I'm trying to just highlight the fact that we have got quite a few African delegates, or delegates from the rest of the continent, in our midst. We advised the Minister of that when we had our briefing session earlier to this. Typically, we would have a lot more, but because of some of the travel restrictions that happened towards the end of last year, a few plans were changed. So the focus of this event, and it is clearly called the Africa Energy Indaba deliberately, because whilst we're located in Cape Town, we wanted to understand and discuss the issues around this city. We're also looking at discussing the issues within and challenges within South Africa and also the African continent. So to that end, one of the events that we have got ongoing for the next 2 days is what we're calling the Investment Hub. And we've got 9 African countries that will be presenting their projects, energy projects, infrastructure projects, at that particular, for 30 minutes a shot, and with an audience for question and answer. and would really encourage everybody, especially as South Africans, for us to understand the challenges that exist outside of our borders, because it's only by working together as Africans that we can solve the solution, or solve the problems of the African energy deficit. We have got a huge deficit, and I know I'm not undermining the issues that we have in South Africa. We do have our own challenges, but I think we also need to be cognizant of the fact that we are working within the context of a continent that is sitting at a huge energy deficit, that needs to industrialize at a rapid pace in order to manufacture so that we can trade with each other effectively if we're to make meaningful sense of the recently activated African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Without industrialization, without manufacturing, we will not be able to do that. So some of the discussions that are going to be held here are going to be very African focused. We're not going to dismiss what's happening in South Africa, but I think we're going to be talking around solutions for the continent as a whole. So I won't go into too much detail there, Honourable Minister. We'll talk you through the exhibition, but I would like to take this time now to introduce you to give your keynote address. Everybody is very keen to hear what our minister has to say, and we're very glad and privileged to have him here today to deliver his keynote address to us. Thank you very much.
Program Director, Mayor Evans, the Deputy Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, Dr. Nkabana, the Honorable Mayor of Cape Town. You have a long surname. Hugh Lewis is too long. Distinguished guests, all of you are distinguished guests. You are invited to this event. Members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. The African Union's vision to create the Africa we want aspires for, among others, a prosperous Africa based on inclusive growth and sustainable development. That means this aspiration is about the continent. For the aspiration to be real, the goal of transforming our economies involves prioritizing industrialization, economic diversification and resilience, and invest in energy resources and capacities. This is the Africa we want. This vision arising from our wish to catch up with industrialized societies and overcome the stigma of socio-economic hardships often used stereotypically to characterize our continent. I'm raising this issue because even in the debate on energy, we are expected to fast forward into where developed economies are, as if we can reach that state without traveling the journey. The reality is that we'll reach that stage, but we have to travel the journey. Our attempts to lift our economies and our nations from misery and underdevelopment were dealt a severe blow by the global COVID-19 pandemic. In what the IMF refers to as dangerous divergence, economic recovery in Africa and parts of South Asia lags industrial economies. According to the World Bank, 2023, the GDP of sub-Saharan Africa will be 4% lower than pre-pandemic forecast estimates. So in other words, what we have not achieved is to catch up to at least be where we were at the beginning of the pandemic. And this conference, I hope, will contribute in us catching up to be there. Energy is a catalyst for economic growth. Energy is a catalyst for economic growth, and as players in the sector, just internalize that and take pride of it. The present situation regarding Ukraine, that peace Russia Federation against North Atlantic Treaty Organization and its allies, threatens our already battered economies. It further postpones our reach for Africa we want. I don't know if you have noticed, we're in a department that is blamed for all the ills. When the price of crude moved and reached $100 a barrel, we didn't read that in the research. We met it in the pump because we don't have our own oil. We import it. Then when it is shooting up because of the conflict somewhere in Ukraine, we pay for the price in the pump. The present situation, therefore, is affecting us directly. Of immediate effect is the rising price of crude oil that translates in severely high fuel prices of our individual countries. The relief on fuel taxes announced by our government last week budget is already corroded by the petrol cost. You will have noticed that NERSA has approved an increase in electricity price as well. ESCOM wanted 20%, they were given 9.5%. But still, 9.5% for a poor country like ours is a lot of money. The biggest challenge confronting our continent is energy poverty. Energy poverty is a concept that we hardly talk about. In the modern discussion on energy, we always aspire to move to cleaner energy and all those terms. But in the continent, the biggest problem is energy poverty. People have no access to energy. At least South Africa has made some progress. When in 1994, 39% of South Africans had access to electricity. Today, 87% does have access to electricity. Now, that's progress. That's why when we talk of load shedding, we feel very bad about it, but we also appreciate the fact that the load on the infrastructure has increased dramatically, and we have a responsibility to manage that load in a big way. Therefore, this is despite the abundance of our individual countries' energy resources, including mineral resources that are catalytic for low carbon, environmental sustainable world. All the minerals of the future that will play on the green transition are found in South Africa. Therefore, energy and mining are intertwined. You can't separate the two. They're the same. They work together. The more they cooperate, the better it is for them. The biggest, and then energy consumption in sub-Saharan Africa, excluding South Africa, is below 30 gigawatts. This is comparable to energy consumption in Argentina alone. And that is what we refer to when we talk of energy poverty. And that is what this sector sitting here today must grapple with and address. Apart from low energy consumption, our economies are beset with intermittent electricity supply and high electricity tariffs. Both these factors impact adversely on industrial production and on the ability of the poor to improve their well-being. One time, people forget this. Electricity price in South Africa was among the bottom 3 cost-effective countries. And electricity was a positive factor for industrialization. You can no longer say that today. And the team in this room can talk to that issue. The Africa one must be shaped against the backdrop of global commitment towards the zero carbon emissions. This is what African Union means by an environmentally sustainable and climate resilient economies and communities. All of us gathered here today have committed to the United Nations Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement. Individual African countries with minimal resources continue to carry the devastating consequences of climate change. This despite our economies not being a major polluter and contributor to global degradation. We are expected to move quick towards a low carbon emission era, despite the fact that the actual accused in this case are the developed economies. Africa is at the bottom of pollution barometer in the continent. Aligned to UN framework, we believe in the principle of common but differentiated roles and responsibilities, thereby cognizant of the developmental reality and divide between developed and developing economies. We remain committed to contribute our fair share, doing so in a balanced and equitable way. Transition must aid development and address historical inequalities and not undermine and exacerbate them. We must not be ambivalent about just energy transition debate. The assumed pendulum swing, what others call accelerated transition, intent of replacing one system with another, is a flash and is both irrational and dangerous. Many of us talk about moving from coal to renewables. It can't be a pendulum shift. We're going to transition from high carbon emission to low carbon emissions. It means a balanced approach and a mixture of technologies. Our overall response must be fair, balanced, and inclusive transition. At its center must be the people and livelihoods. Therefore, this thing called just transition is not about numbers. It's about people. It's about communities. Every time I talk about this, Mayor, you are far removed from it. I invite people to take a journey with me from Belfast to Delmas. It's a big stretch of land in Mpumalanga. It's a continuous operation of coal mining and coal generation. The reality that we're sitting with is that we are running a fleet of 16 coal power generating plants. And the transition is from that reality to a new reality. It's not about some imaginary problem. That's why in the IRP 2019, you will see that we are committing ourselves to reduce coal generation from 75% to 60% and increase renewables by 18%. That is a journey. Then in between there is a mixture of technologies. The transition resets present economies, changes the nature of industries, gives newer logics to jobs and skill set required. We therefore need to engage with the reality of pragmatic manner and refocus the debate away from narrow techno-determinist view to one that focuses holistically on what this means for developing African societies. So in other words, what we should avoid when we talk of jobs, somebody came to me and say, renewables are going to create 330,000 jobs. And I've asked the question, That give me the formula. Give me the formula of this 330 jobs from renewables as opposed to 89,000 jobs in coal mining. And I have not found a formula. I'm sure with experts who in this room will get that formula today. Let me give you an example. I grew up in the Eastern Cape. That's what I regard as my home even today. I took a drive to one wind farm in the Eastern Cape, which is having a lot of wind farms. I discovered that that farm employs 5 people permanently. 5. And I said, I want these experts to explain to me how are these jobs going to be created. So we must not be abstract about what solutions that we're looking for. And that is not an argument against transitioning to low carbon emissions. It's an argument against distorting information to convince everybody else. That's all. Now, the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy in South Africa is finalizing its policy inputs on the just transition framework for energy and mining sectors. The bias is towards mitigating the expected socio-economic impacts on our mining and energy communities. It emphasizes reskilling of workers as well as creating alternative economic livelihoods for the communities surrounding such energy utilities and mines. We intend to commence with wide-ranging public dialogue and consultation process this year. Now, uncertainties in the global supply and security of petroleum resources provide greater resolve for African countries like South Africa to own refinery infrastructure capacity. Such capacity guarantees national security. We are very worried about the fact that a number of energy companies want to close refining capacity and replace it with import depots. That's a big worry for us. We need that refining capacity as a country. Yes, we'll import part of the product, but we must have refining capacity. And such capacity guarantees national security for us. This is further hastened by the global and multinational companies that have signaled their intention to close refineries and import petroleum products in our country. Many other African countries are facing similar realities. I can tell one of the things that we're doing is to increase our trade with the continent. Intra-African trade is improving, and we're putting a lot of investment into that intra-Africa trade. It's very important for us, and the investment to that will be appreciated. Another challenge is that of inadequate infrastructure to generate and transmit energy. Hence, intermittent electricity outages that disrupt energy consumption. In South Africa, we're moving towards the separation of generation, transmission, and distribution to enable the entry of other role players in the electricity market space through Electricity Regulation Act that is out for public comments. In other words, we are establishing the transmission as an independent company that will be a market and a wheeler of energy from any generator to any consumer anywhere in the country. And if we do that successfully, we are going to be a different country. And people ask me whether this has happened. I said, take a journey, go and look at the Dutch model, for example, where there is transmission as a market and a wheeler. Then you can generate energy from Cape Town with your ambition. I can buy that energy from Cape Town and consume it in Ghana. Once that transmission is independent and it is a market and a wheeler of energy. Mixed energy technologies are central to efforts to move from high carbon to low carbon emissions. Africa is endowed with natural resources like no other continent, which can be helpful towards development of technology consistent with renewable energy. As African governments, we must create conducive environment for infrastructure development. It is important that we create an environment to ease of doing business in Africa across the spectrum of upstream and midstream and downstream. Africa should be global trailblazer in renewable energy, and our continent has all minerals required to drive meaningful development of fast pace. We need programs to enable economic exploitation, beneficiation and exportation. Investment in research and development and technology is an imperative if we are to grow and develop completely globally. To unleash this potential in our energy resources, we require international cooperation, national and continent-wide private financial investment sectors must play a role of this initiative. I'm making this point because unless we attract investment, growth is going to be slow. Unless we create an environment which makes it easy to do business in our continent, investment is going to be slow. I have looked into a few examples which affect your province, by the way. The drive to kill exploration in downstream energy, oil and gas. That fight to kill downstream exploration is going to slow down the development. And our oceans, particularly in the Western Cape, lesser extent in the Eastern Cape, a lot of it in KZN, are the potential next growth point, energy growing to be a sector on its own that is competing with others. You know, every time I read the GDP, I always look at it, it is broken. Contribution of minerals is quite clear, doing well, with good commodities is doing well. But every time it comes to energy, which is gas, electricity, and water, contribution is always negative. Until we construct this sector into an economic sector that is confident and actually standing its ground and compete with other sectors, the growth in South Africa is not going to be at the level it should be. So I'm encouraging the energy sector to stand up and be counted and be part of growing the economy in the country and play its role. And my own analysis is that potential is there is unlimited. We need to foster stronger ties within the African oil and gas trade. Already, South Africa imports bulk of crude requirements from African producers, including Nigeria and Angola. There is an ample opportunity for a massive expansion of gas trade, especially from the Gulf of Guinea and broader west coast of Africa, where we have many producers, some already exporting. We collaborate closely with African Petroleum Producers Organization and urge more meaningful engagement with this continental body. In this context, the recent oil discoveries in Namibia are massively welcome impetus for development in that country, but also for us on the tip of the continent and for our region. We trust that the development of the domestic Namibian gas market emanating from these three finds will benefit the region in terms of substituting diesel usage in power presentation. Our sources inform us that Namibia oil fields, when fully developed, would catapult the country to be among the top 5 oil-producing countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, and this is a very important point because companies that are making the finds of oil and gas in Namibia have been harassed out of South Africa. Harassed them because we want to be an island of angels in a sea of poverty. It's the most dangerous strategy for us in South Africa. Shell, we chase it out. ENI, we chase it out in KZN. They go to Gwede, make huge oil finds. Shell we chase it out of this and make use of it next door in Namibia, including the Orange Basin, which is very close to us. And I'm sure if we do that exploration, we are going to be a different country. Let me conclude by that energy must drive regional and continental economic development, as is the case in advanced economy. We need to continuously share ideas on how we can collectively accelerate Africa's energy sector development to be the core of all socio-economic development and continental growth and development. Africa must define its own just energy transition that will economically empower and enable the continent to grow. I'm making this point that as a small economy, sometimes we feel we are encircled. When we are encircled, we have no space to think and develop our own strategy. We become conduits of developed economies who impose their own strategies on us. We're sitting with an offer here, Mayor. They want to give us 131 billion rand to move fast out of coal. It's offered. And coal make 130 billion rand in 1 year in turnover. You see? Now, I'm not a mathematician. Mathematician may calculate that. You are given 131 billion rand to accelerate the movement out of coal. Turnover for coal as a sector in 2021, 130 billion rand. Just think of it. Our own agenda, our own execution, where we cooperate and invite others to partner with us to adhere to Africa we want. I'm confident you will add meaningful contribution to the deliberation and show confidence to inspire rapid development in the continent as the energy sector. I have confidence in the energy sector that it has not exploited its potential, not only in South Africa, but in the continent. We can do more. A few years ago, Mozambique was not on the map. Today, Mozambique is on the map for its gas production, and many other areas are going to be on the map on our gas production. Finally, let me assure the Mayor, you, I hope we succeed in revitalizing Petro SA in Mossel Bay to go back to full production and be a player in the energy sector. We are working on that. Thank you very much.
No, you stay. Okay, you stay with me for now.
Why?
Because we're just about to go to
Okay.
Thank you, Honourable Minister, for that very insightful keynote. I think one of the key takeouts has been from the Cape Townian Mayor was energy security. From my side, it was energy poverty, which is a key issue on the African continent. And as the Energy Indaba, the Minister was encouraging us to look at how we transition and incorporate this just transition as Africans in a socially meaningful manner. We know timing is very, very tight, so I'm just going to ask Honourable Minister if the exhibitors can please go to their stands so that we can then begin the process of the Minister doing the walkabout into the exhibition floor. On that note, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. So for now, we're just going to hold the Minister here just for a minute whilst everybody goes to the exhibition stands, please, so that we can start doing the walkabout. Thank you.
All right, we've not explored our full potential in the energy space, and we can do more. This is Minister of Minerals and Energy, Gwede. Center, weighing in on the exploration conversation, saying South Africans are pushing away opportunities and our neighboring countries will take advantage of these opportunities. Of course, before him, the mayor of the city of Cape Town, Mayor Gordon Hill-Lewis, also addressed the opening of the event. We'll take you back there as soon as the minister starts his walkabout. For now, let's take a break with weather as we chase the top of the next hour.
Welcome, and let's take a look at your weather details. We are seeing conditions that are extremely conducive to fell fires over Northern Cape, over Eastern Cape, severe thunderstorms, Mpumalanga.
Shakira. 12:15. So, Okata between 12:15 and 12:15. Okay. Confirm it and then you send the Igama to Shakir over to 12:15. That's our guest. Ambuzo ukuthi.
Hello ladies.
Hi.
You're offline. I'm using the wrong language here.
Oh.
So we're here because we need a woman. So I saw it in the sense. So in case you're looking for a story, that yeah.
Could be any time this week. Today maybe.
No stress. Yeah.
But
Our director general is there.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Guys, I think a person is coming. I think the minister is coming.
Oh, just hold on.
Studio, minister is coming. Okay. Okay. No, Minister. You have to stand there. That is your camera, but you'll be looking at me.
I'm talking to you.
Speaking to me. Yeah. Yes. Yes, you can come to me now. Minister, you'll be looking at me, but this is your camera that will be facing. Of course, I'll smile. Just don't forget your words while I'm smiling. Yes, the camera is on. They're just finishing off the last story and then they're coming promptly to us. Will you remember your words?
If you do more than that, I will.
Makeup? I can't convince you even with my smile. Just on the nose? Is the audio sorted? Diakbon. That goes without saying. But, a century shot ya high. Oh, may I? you happy with his tie? Hi, Desiree. Yes, just like you've just said that we've managed to catch the minister while he's doing the walkabout here at the exhibition center at the Africa Energy Indaba. He said some interesting things during his keynote address a short while ago. But what really caught my attention is the issue of geopolitical tensions and how that has impacted on the rand-dollar price that we've seen over the past week, even going up to more than $100 a barrel. We know what that means. That means that we're going to feel the pain at the pumps. As of midnight, we saw the price of petrol, particularly inland, going up by R1.46. This is the minister's jurisdiction, and there has been calls, Minister, talking about us re-looking at how we calculate the basic price of petrol. Has anything been put on your table, and what is government doing about this, seeing that we could have other geopolitical tensions in the future impacting the rand-dollar exchange rate and also the oil price, and eventually hitting us in the pockets?
We're in discussion with the Minister of Finance, particularly maybe separating the insurance part for various issues like RALF and others. But the price of oil, if it goes over 100, we'll see it. It doesn't matter how we calculate it. And because our exchange currency is on the open market, it fluctuates depending on that pressure. That you cannot change unless you want to have a fixed rand-dollar exchange, which is not working in the real world.
Let's talk about also what you mentioned about the issue of infrastructure and how we need to take care of infrastructure. We've seen that refineries such as SABC are now shutting down, and some energy retailers are now still importing. What is the plan with regards to making sure that we keep our own refineries in the country, Minister?
I hope the state can be able to take over SABC. I'm still hopeful about that, because if we do that, at least the state will increase its capacity in the refining space. And if you take SABC and you rework on Petro SA, you reinstate it, we'll actually control quite a sizable amount of refining capacity. But part of the finished product will have to be imported in any way. But the state must also have that right to import and refine.
On a number of occasions, Minister, I've heard you talk about this notion of energy poverty, particularly in Africa. This is despite, the kind of progress we've made in South Africa of electrifying homes. What is normally your thinking when you think about us not getting to the energy poverty point? Perhaps maybe our viewers do not understand what you mean.
Until we have universal access to energy, we still have energy poverty. We're away from that. Number two, if the price of electricity is making it inaccessible, we still remain in energy poverty. We'll have people in my village in Kala having every hut connected to the grid, but still people have to fetch wood, coal, paraffin, because they can't use that electricity for space heating and clean cooking. They have to use it for lighting to minimize the cost. Those are signs of energy poverty, and it must be addressed.
Let's talk about the issue of coal versus, the whole energy, it's just transition of energy. There are a lot of talks globally about worlds or countries moving away from coal. However, we are stuck with more than 200 years worth of coal underneath South African grounds. And I've seen that you're not quite a fan of us completely moving away from coal. Take me through your thinking about that.
I'm not a fan of a pendulum swing, where people say accelerate moving away from coal, go to renewables. I think that will be a disaster. I'm a fan of a pragmatic, systematic approach about the transition. So we travel the journey from high carbon emission to low carbon emission. In that process, also do research on cleaner coal technologies so that we can still have technologies that give us access to coal and use coal as source of energy into the future. And therefore my passion is mixed technologies that will sustain security of energy supply while we're moving to cleaner energy.
And there's that 9.61% that we're facing from NERSA. Consumers not happy about it. What is your feeling about NERSA and ESCOM really, and how they're increasing the price of electricity?
Actually, ESCOM wanted 20%, they are giving 9.6%, which is a big movement. And we're discussing with NERSA, I say, the formula for regulation is backward, because you compensate ESCOM even for inefficiencies, and we should not be doing that. But it's an issue that is on the table. It must be debated and be sorted out.
Before I let you go, I could keep you here the whole day, Minister, but before I let you go, your last words on the whole Ukraine and Russia thing, even though it has an impact on us here in South Africa, what is the thinking within your colleagues in government about the Ukraine and Russia thing?
South Africa is a great believer on peaceful solution for conflict. I'm one of those people who believe in peaceful solution on conflict. There is no war that is having a winner. Every war is only having losers. Even if you are projected as a winner of a war, you are actually a loser, because a lot of value will be destroyed. So I'm a great believer on peaceful solution. I think we can find that formula in the Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Minister, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much. That was the Minister of Minerals and Energy, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, giving us his thoughts about what's happening currently with the geopolitical tensions in Russia and Ukraine, his thoughts about the NERSA, that increase that we saw. And of course, the most important thing is seeing it that it's the 1st of March, and we're seeing an increase being affected at the pumps, that particularly inland will see that the price of petrol goes up by R1.46, bringing the 1 litre of petrol to R21.46. He says that the department is looking at stripping away insurance and others, so that when you have these tensions that impact on the price of oil, which effectively also impacts on the price of the fuel at the pumps, it is lessened on the pockets of consumers. We are still here at the CTICC, and we are following the Energy Indaba, the Africa Energy Indaba. We will be finding more people to speak to, so that you may be able to hear what they're thinking about the energy situation in the continent. Back to you in studio. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.
What time is our next crossing?
The next person is at 12:15. Maybe we can change.
12:15. This side is fast. That screw loose.
It's loose now?